Hi, Mike Cavalli Show. This is Tanya Aarons. Um, Mike put out a request for people to offer up stories of near death experiences or angelic connections or anything of that kind of paranormal bent. Um, I have a zillion stories because I kind of had a very unusual life, but I'm not the only one, I'm not special. Um, so I thought I would just send you a quick video based on tonight's show, the 23rd of February 2022, which was about a woman who had an encounter with an angel. So my story is not quite as exciting as hers because I have not yet, to my knowledge, seen the angel that has been present in my life, especially in the past decade. And probably that's a good thing because if I saw them, I say them because I don't believe that angels or, you know, well, I'm just a bit gender neutral about angels. In classical sense, angels are supposed to be, have both gender or attributes of both genders. So that's my Jewish background speaking. Um, but it's a big universe, and I've been known to be wrong before, so it's all good. So anyway, my story about the angel that I've never yet seen, because it would freak me out, probably, is that uh, after my mother died in 2010, there was a very long, evil, distressing, very, very distressing 2.5 year will dispute. And so uh, after that, it resolved itself finally. Oh my goodness, I thought it would never end at the time. I decided that it was time that I reclaimed my personhood as a woman and as a spirit and as a soul. And I went dancing. And I went dancing in quite dark and dingy and turgid and sordid places, notably a Irish pub here called Irish Murphy's. So that was back in, I actually started dancing there before the will dispute ended. So I started dancing there in 2011 and I carried on dancing there until about, I think it was February 2015 when I was actually banned for fighting for my rights and my safety as a woman and as a female customer on their premises. So 2011 to 2000, early 2015, you might as well say, 3 and a bit years. So anywho, so what actually occurred, because I am a trauma survivor, so I'm hypervigilant and I need to protect my space, was I had what I used to half jokingly call an infamous spot I picked right near the front, one of the front entrances, which was actually on the corner of the building, or the corner of Elizabeth Street and George Street. I liked that entrance the best because it was a kind of a very nice um, doorway, wooden door that you went through, and it was literally like entering into a vortex because I'm sensitive to energy. And so I would pick right near the door this infamous little spot that I had claimed, um, which was right next to the band. So this way I could be dancing shamanically and tribally and triumphantly because I had a lot of rage and energy and excitement and triumph and all those kind of things blended in with my survival of not just my mother's evil will dispute, but my entire life. And at this stage, when I was going there, I was just over, I was 44 going on 45, and I was there dancing until I was about 49. So no, it must have been 45 going to 49. So anyway, so what happened was I used to dance wildly and triumphantly and stoically, and at the same time I would have my eyes on the crowd, watching for dangerous, malevolent, literally spirits infested in human bodies, or actual discarnate spirits. Not that I could see them with my naked eye, but I could often sense when the energy would shift and become something a bit threatening or unwholesome. Now, we're talking a wild Irish pub where, people were drunk and a lot of the people were under the influence of drugs. And so, no judgment. I was there having a wild old time too, with my own little agenda, which was I just wanted to release years and years and years of trauma and grief and disappointment and rejection and abandonment and all that crap, and the hope that I might find a nice partner there one day, which I did actually find a nice fellow, but it didn't work out. Anyway, there were quite a few people I met there, but none of them worked out. But anyway, I won't go into that because that's irrelevant to the story. So I'm standing there in this, my little spot, and people come and go, and it would be so packed on a Friday or Saturday night, you literally couldn't move, which for me is very destabilizing and uncomfortable because I don't like being in close proximity to people where I'm hemmed in and there's no sense of escape. So I would have to really rise above it, and I would shoulder my way through the crowd. So of course, I'm probably looking back on it now, probably, the average person going, they thought, well, she's a bit of a, cocky cow, But it was just my way of keeping myself safe and empowered and owning my little spot and my little place within that environment. So getting to the angel story now. So one night, it wasn't too busy this particular night, a woman came and she stood beside me, and she seemed to be an acquaintance of another woman who was a regular dancer there, who was a bit of a wild bikey chick named Shazza, who I was quite fond of. I really liked Shazza. She was a very real, down-to-earth, kind person and had always been very kind to me. So anyway, she introduces me to her friend, which I don't remember her friend's name. And then Shazza, being the free spirit that she was, wandered off to get a drink and dance and flirt and do whatever Shazza does, So anyway, this acquaintance of Shazza was standing beside me. And I wasn't actually in my spot. I was out on my spot. And the minute I used to leave my spot, it was like I would start feeling like a little bit more vulnerable and a little bit more unsettled, and I would try to contain it because I knew it was neurotic. Like, come on, seriously, I'd only be like maybe a few feet away, But that's how much psychic, emotional, spiritual, and physical energy I had poured into this Irish pub in Brisbane. So So I'm very amused by this because it all turned very toxic and ugly at the end. But I can still have some happy memories of the good times when I had my little foray into, yes, the scene. Have to laugh. So anyway, so this very nice woman standing beside me, and I'm standing there, watching the dancers, watching the boozers and the drinkers and the yobbos and all the people coming and going that are like trawling for women, and I'm just kind of keeping an eye on things. And now I didn't presume to think that I was security by any stretch of the imagination. I had employed security, but the security over time had built a bit of a relationship with me that they knew they could trust me, that I would be kind of like the canary down the mine, and I would go, this one's trouble, he's going to have to go, and they'd be like, they were mostly Maori or Polynesian guys, big, beefy, strong wild men. And they just developed this rapport with me when they understood that my intuition was usually 99.9% accurate when it came to identifying people who were quite dangerous. So made their job very easy actually. Some of them resented it and got nasty, but some of them like really respected that although I was dancing as fast and as wild as I could, that I was very super aware, almost to the point of hyper arousal of my environment. And so anyway, this lovely woman stood beside me, and I was just like chilling out. I'd been dancing for a few hours, and I'd get to the point where I'd be so exhausted, but I would have to push into what I used to call the fourth or fifth win when I would go again. I had stamina of a Viking berserker without the acid. So it was quite lovely in a way. And this lovely lady stood beside me this particular evening. I think it was a Friday night, if I recall correctly. And she looked at me and she went, "Wow." And I thought, what an odd thing to say to someone you've just barely been introduced to, and Shazza had wandered off. So I looked at her and said, "Oh, that's nice." And she goes, "No, you don't understand." And I said, "Oh, what don't I understand?" She said, she literally inhaled deeply. She said, "I feel so safe with you." And I'm looking at her thinking, oh, is this a bit of a wind up? Shazza told her that I'm a bit wild and crazy and out there, and it's just to stir me up. So I just kind of nodded and I went, "Oh, that's nice, darling, because I don't always feel safe with me either." And she's like looking at me and she goes, "No, you don't understand. You're not getting it." And I was like, "What?" She said, "I have never seen anything like this." And she said, "I'm psychic and I've seen a lot of things in my time." So I'm thinking to myself, is this another wind up? Because I never, very rarely discussed my spiritual practice and beliefs at the pub because we were too busy drinking, cavorting and dancing. So I kind of left that as a separate thing. So anyway, I'm looking at this lady and she says to me, I said, "What do you mean you've never seen anything like it?" And I said, "What, me dancing like a maniac?" And she said, "No, no, no, no." She said, "Behind you is the most enormous angel I have ever seen in my whole life." And she said, "And I have seen angels." And I said to her, I turned to her, I realised then, looking at her face, that she was quite genuinely meaning it. And I'm kind of starting to get a little bit like the hair was going up on the back of my neck, and I was starting to get a bit freaked out because I was like, how when someone tells you something and it's the truth, but you're kind of not ready to quite accept it? So I look at her and I said, "Oh, really?" I'm thinking, "Oh, this one's probably schizoaffective, we've been drinking all night, whatever, she's hallucinating." And she looked right into my face as though she could see that that's what I was thinking, all my doubts and all my judgments and all my fears. Because let's face it, there were a lot of very, very crazy and damaged people frequented that pub. And, I could be crazy and damaged at times, so I know what I'm speaking of. So she turns to me again and she said, "I want you to know this, Tanya." She said, "This angel," she said, "he's enormous. He's at least 9 feet tall." And I was like, "Oh, well, I don't know how tall angels are." And she goes, "I'm telling you, he is enormous." And she said, "And his wings," she said, "they're the most luminous, enormous wings." And she said, "He's got them tucked back behind him." And he's showing me that he's tucking his wings back. She said, "But," she said, "he's just opened his wings to show me." And she said, "His wingspan is at least, 12 feet across." And she says, "Can't you feel him?" And the minute she said that, I went, oh, and then literally I was about to say something smart ass like, oh no, darling. But the minute she said that, I looked at her and she could see that I was thinking, what's going on here? I felt behind me. She said, he's just opened his wings now. And it was spooky because all the windows were closed behind us. Generally on a summer's night, they would open all the windows so you'd get a breeze blowing through, but there was no breeze. And so as soon as she said he's opening his wings to show me how massive they are, I actually felt behind me, really close to the back of my neck, this huge, I'm shaking telling the story because it was so intense. I felt this huge whoosh behind me, like there was no sound of a whoosh, like it wasn't an external, like heard from your outside hearing, like, I guess if that happened, the whole bub would have freaked out. But I could feel it within my body, this whoosh, and this blast of air went right down the back of my, the back of my nape of my neck, the cortex of your brain or whatever the back of your neck is, and it shot right through my spine. And that's when I realised this woman was not crazy. She was actually telling me the truth. So I said to her, I sort of was a bit shaken, and I looked at her and she said, did you feel that? And she's like, try not to laugh at me, because she's probably thinking, oh, Tanya's being really, a bit of a hard nut. And I said to her, I looked at her, and I will not lie to people. I will not minimise. When I've had a mystical experience, I'm always like humbled and a little bit awestruck and honest. So I said to her, yes, I did feel that. And she says, can't you see him? And I said to her, no, I've never seen him. She says, how long has he been with you? And I said to her, I can't tell you that either. I don't know. I said, I've had quite a few very strange experiences that I know I was saved by someone or something, supranatural. I said, some people would call it God or an angel. But I said, because I've never seen it with my physical eyes or heard it with my physical ears, I've always kind of doubted myself. And she turned to me and she said to me, never doubt yourself again, Tanya. And she said, and the angel wants me to tell you that from now on, now that you know that they are actually physically present in your life, and he's standing right behind you, like his wings out, protecting you. She said, he's instructing me to tell you, and this is very important, that any time that you feel like you're in real danger, like she said, I'm not talking about trivial things, but like when you feel really threatened or about to be, put into, life-threatening situation, which back in those days there were quite a few things going down which were unpleasant. She said, I want you to call upon him. And I said, but I don't know which angel it is, I don't know their name. And she said, it doesn't matter, he's with you. And she looked up behind me, and the look on her face was just like, oh, and by this stage I'm starting to freak out a little bit. So I sort of said to her, well, who are you? And she says, oh, you won't see me again. And I said, why not? Aren't you a friend of Shazza? She introduced you to me. She said, oh, no. She said, I am very rarely in Brisbane. And she said, I work for the mines and I do fly in and fly outs, and I'm usually working in Western Australia, which is the other side of this enormous continent. She said, the likelihood of you seeing me again is very rare. She said, but this is why, she said, I wanted to tell you about your angel, because she said, he's beautiful and, she said, and protective. And she said, I'm just standing next to you. And she said, and she said, I can smell him. And I'm looking at her thinking, oh my goodness. I said to her, what does he smell like? And she said, oh, she said, he smells of safety and peace and kind of earthy. She goes, can't you smell him? And I'm like, no. And then I sort of thought, what an odd thing, because you wouldn't think that angels would smell earthy, would you? However, my angels, I sometimes get angry about my life circumstances, and I sometimes do rail against God. I know it's not a smart thing to do, but my angel, that one in particular, I used to jokingly refer to as my trickster gods, because their relationship with me is indeed very earthy. Think the movie Michael, where Angel Michael came down, he's rubbing his balls and he hasn't shaved, he just looks scruffy. Well, I know that was a fictional story, but I kind of imagine my angels showing up to me. If they did appear to me physically, they would show up to me as like a real kind of ordinary looking person. I might not even realise I've seen an angel except if I saw their wings, like the lady could see. So anyway, she said, call upon this angel anytime you feel threatened here. And she says, you often feel threatened here. And she said, and I've been watching you. And she said, you handle it really well. And she said, and those security guards, she said, they watch your reactions and they mirror and react to you. She said, you are protected here. She said, but there are some times when they can't react quick enough, or it's too crowded, or there'll be some circumstances where you don't feel safe. She said, I want you to call upon your angel. And she said, and I want you to put it to the test. She said, not trivially, but she said, I want you to be conscious now that I have trouble calling angels he for some reason, but she said, I want you to be conscious that that energy is in your life and that they are here for a reason. She said, you might not always understand it. She said, it's not for you to understand. She said, but I want you to develop a relationship now and know that you can trust in this angel, that they will be there for you should you be in time of, real concern or danger. So I looked at her and I nodded and I said, thank you, and it was lovely to meet you, and thank you for your, guidance, and, thank you for telling me about the angel. I said, I'm just stunned that you could see them. And she said, no. She said, there's no accidents in the universe. You are meant to know this. She said, the time will come very soon that you will need to call upon him. She said, trust in that. And then she kind of left. And true to form, I never saw that woman again. She was an ordinary Australian woman, and she was a very, not an angel herself. She was a real person, but clearly, mediumistic or psychic. So anyway, I went home and I mulled it over and I thought about all the really, really quite scary supernatural events that had occurred in my life where I had been rescued, sometimes at the 11th hour, other times, mysterious little happenings. And I thought about it and I thought, my goodness, like, this lady was telling me the truth. I just felt it within the core of my being. So, and Mike Cavalli, it's supposed to be a 5-minute video and we're already in 24 minutes, but bear with me, because stage 2 of this angel story is, so a few weeks later, I'm there at the Irish Murphy's pub, and it was very busy, because it was always a very, very busy pub, very popular, live bands and wild men and wild women, and me, the weirdo in the group. And so I have to laugh about that. And so I'm standing there in my spot, and because I'm near the front door, I could monitor people as they walk through, kind of make eye contact. So I kind of functioned as an unofficial, unpaid hostess, if you get my vibe. And so these three men walked in, and as they walked in, they shot me this look. There was nothing wrong with that per se. It wasn't the way they looked at me, but there was this dark, sinister, evil, like almost like feeling like someone had thrown slime over you that went through my body. And so, I smiled politely, hello, being polite, and carried on dancing. But I watched them, and they circled around. It was a very small dance area, and that led to the bar. And it was kind of the dance floor. And the bar, the Irish Murphy's floor plan was you had to go right around, almost like the shape of number 11. Like 1-1. It was divided. The room was partially divided. So I watched these guys go right round the back, curved round the back of the room, go over towards the bar. Before they got to the bar to order their drinks, I had already scoped them as being dangerous. And honestly, I can't tell you why I decided they were dangerous, but I just kind of knew. So I look at one of the security guards, and he looks back at me, and nothing was said. He nodded. The Maori people have a particular way that, when they greet you or when they acknowledge, something, they will just do a quick little nod. And so I gave him a quick little nod back. Anyway, one of the other security guards comes over to me and he said, "What's going on, Tanya?" And I said to him, "Those guys that just walked in?" He went, "Yes." I said, "They will leave within 5 minutes." He goes, "Do you want to make a bet?" And I said, "Oh, look, I'm not a gambling woman. I don't have money to throw away in stupidity." He goes, $5. And I said, $5 it is. Within 5 minutes, those men will be gone. And the security guards were laughing, it was just a bit of a wind-up. So they go back, he went back and he nodded to the other security guard, and they're watching me. Anyway, the tension's brewing, and I'm trying not to focus on the three guys because I knew the security guards, I'd alerted them to the fact that they were going to be trouble. So I knew that was their job, not my problem. So I go back to dancing, Rah! To the rock music. Off I went, crazy as always. And suddenly I felt this presence behind me as if something had wrapped its wings around me. And I looked up, I couldn't see it, but I could feel it. And I said, "I'm in danger now, aren't I?" I said, "I call upon you to protect me." And literally again, in my inner hearing, I heard the whoosh. And next thing I know, I look around, and those three guys were being manhandled straight out the door, and it was actually within the 5 minutes, exactly as I predicted. So it got to the stage after that security guards would look at me and go, "How did you know?" And I would just go, "Oh, woman's intuition." And they would like, "No, it's more than that." And I would be like, "Yep, I know. But we'll just leave it at that, won't we?" And they were like, "Yeah, okay." So it was actually quite delightful. So, but yes, I do believe firmly. Sorry, I'm having a little hot flush here. I mowed my lawns today, and I've worn myself out, and my whole body's reacting. But anyway, that angel has been with me for, I think, since at least the time when I was working at the Queensland Police Academy and I fell out of a bus. But that's a whole other story, and if you're interested, I'll make another video. But I hope you like this story, and yeah, it's a true story, and I did experience it. But yes, angels. There are angels among us. I talk a lot about earth angels, which are human beings who've been almost miraculously popping into my life and disappearing, a bit like that lady that introduced me to my supernatural angel. But there are so many incredible uh, beings, and like I say, it's a big universe. So I had to kind of learn to navigate that at times. But anyway, good evening, and I hope you enjoy the story, and we'll be in touch. Bye for now.